Hey everyone, welcome to the Neo4j Twitch channel. My name is Adam. I'm a member of the developer relations team at Neo4j. I look after Graph Academy, which is our free online self-paced learning platform. And today we've got a special edition of the Neo4j stream. So I guess without further ado, I'll just invite our special guest onto the show, and that is Jason Lengstorf.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey Jason, how's it going?
It's going well.
Good stuff. So to give our viewers a little bit of a background to this stream, I've just gone out of focus. So I think what was about 9 months ago, I guess we were on your show on Learn with Jason. You kind of invited me on to Learn with Jason to talk more about Neo4j and how we'd use Node.js to connect to a Neo4j application.
Right.
And then you put out a tweet, right, saying that you were looking to be interviewed with or by other people. And was that by any chance like a precursor to some news that you've announced recently?
I just recently went full time on Learn with Jason. It's now my whole job. So very, very exciting.
Amazing. So for our viewers of the Neo4j Twitch channel that may not be familiar to you, why don't you give us a little introduction to yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Jason Lengstorf. I am an educator, a professional goofball, I guess. I've been running a show called Learn with Jason since 2018, where I pair program with people to learn something new in 90 minutes. So it's done live. I don't prep. We just show up and kind of dive into some new technology. Before that, I've worked at Gatsby, at IBM, at Netlify, and I've spent a lot of time in dev tools and in the dev communities trying to help people learn and find ways to make learning fun.
Okay. So would you say that you were a developer first or an educator first?
I started out as an engineer, and I got into education sort of by just happenstance. When I was at IBM, I was what's it called, a staff engineer. I can't remember what the specific title is, but something in the staff principal range. I was working at as a front end architect there, and part of what I was building was just kind of re-architecting the way that they were building for the front end, because they had gone from a monolithic app to microservices, but the microservices were still kind of micro monoliths. The front end was smashed into the middleware, and business logic was smashed into the database. And so I had started cutting the front ends off to make the front end teams more capable of working quickly, this sort of decoupled front end idea. And that led to me bringing in GraphQL and some more modern React techniques and just a few things that were a little bit challenging for folks to wrap their heads around. So a lot of my job at IBM became internally educating the rest of the development teams on why this stuff mattered, how it was helpful, how they could use it, how to get started. And I realized that I was doing DevRel. I was just doing it internally. So when I went over to Gatsby, it was kind of a natural next step to turn that toward the community instead of keeping it internal, because I joined Gatsby when they were 7 people or something. And that was a kind of a natural transition for me.
Okay, and then that led you into starting your YouTube channel, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a big driver of the Learn with Jason was trying to find ways to keep an open source company transparent. So I would do things like stream meetings, which wasn't very interesting, and then people would ask me questions, and I would teach them on stream. But the power dynamics there felt weird. Like somebody who didn't feel confident in their skills was asking me for help, and then I was asking them to publicly not know things, and that felt weird. So I flipped it around, where I would be the one who didn't know things, because that felt okay. And then I was highlighting experts instead, and that was the genesis of the show. That first one was Not a Dabbit in 2018, and just kind of kept it up ever since. We're at, I think, 320 episodes now.
Yeah. Oh wow, yeah, that's brilliant. So what would you say was your favorite subject that you either learned or you taught somebody over those 4 years?
That's a little bit like getting asked to pick your favorite kid, I think. But I've had a handful of really excellent episodes. One of the ones that I was just thinking about was it was a combo episode where it was actually two episodes that were related. I worked with Dan Gorlick to live code music. Yeah, so you kind of programmatically design music. And this is Dan's job. Like, he performs at GitHub Universe. He performed at Jamstack Conf, and he does a lot of this where he'll show up on stage and create live music. And then the next episode was with Shar Stiles, who is also a creative technologist and has done music, as well as she will live code shaders that are reactive to music. So she taught me how to like get into into WebGL and use the audio APIs to pull in music and make these live graphics that were responding to the microphone. Like, really, really, really cool stuff, and an application of technology that I just haven't seen much of. So it really blew my mind.
Okay, so that's an interesting point that you've come across, which is one of the things I'm actually quite interested to ask you is that I've heard you say, I think maybe once, maybe twice before, that you actually started out as a musician and then moved into building websites from there. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I got my start. I dropped out of college to rejoin my high school band, and we were going to go make it big. So we got a 15-passenger van and we toured around the Western US for 2.5, 3 years, for something like that, from about 2004 to 2007, I think, is when we broke up. And so during that time, we were playing for the for the last 2 years. We were playing about 200 shows a year. So you would get out on the road, play like 30 days straight, and then you would come home, take a week off, and then you'd go do it again. And it was we were a good touring band, but we were not a good band. So we made enough money to get from city to city, but we weren't like making lots of money. Nobody got a paycheck. We didn't have a band bankroll. We were all kind of living off of, like, I'd go home and get a job at a Wendy's or a McDonald's for a week and a half to get my $60 paycheck so that I could pay my phone bill, and then bam, back out on the road. So there was no money to hire a designer or a web developer or any of the help that we needed. So I ended up just kind of volunteering to try. So I customized a MySpace page. I designed our merch. I would design our tour flyers. And it was really fun for me. Like, when I was a kid, I was always like sketching and drawing and stuff. So it was a chance to scratch that creative itch. And I made these really just horribly emo band posters and, t-shirts and stuff. Lots of like roses and razor blades and, just sad imagery. But I got a lot of reps. I made a bunch of this stuff, and I was building I customized our MySpace page, and then I built us a custom website. I realized I wanted the band to be able to update the tour journal from their computer. So I got into PHP to build a little light CMS thing. I wanted to be able to play our music on the site. So I learned some Flash and Action scripts so that I could embed the music on the site without it being easy to download. And, was able to just kind of slowly piece together this skill set in service of being a musician. And when the band broke up, I thought, well, okay, what do I do next? Well, I'm going to start another band, right? And then when I actually put some critical thought into it, I realized the thing that I was worst at about being in a band was being a musician. I was actually way better at booking our shows and managing our tour calendar and building our websites and designing things. So the business choice for me was to just switch over to being an agency. So I became a freelance web developer at that point, and applied all the skills that I'd learned about being a musician, except for live performance, to this next job, which kind of kicked off my career in tech.
Okay, and then you moved into the live performance part when you started the channel, which is a nice sort of closing the circle off. It's always interesting that sorry, carry on.
No, it's funny because, I think everybody's got the things that are their biggest drivers of energy. And so for me, it's that community interaction. So when I was in the band, it was to talk to, I had like street teams that I would try to rally, and other bandmates and other bands that we toured with. So there's this big community connection. There was the performance connection. I wanted to be a main entertainer, so I wanted to be on stage and, you know, helping people have a good time. And then there's this sort of like joyful exploration. Like, it was a game to me to try to figure out, how do I not sleep in the van again tonight? So we get clever about ways to find a place to sleep, or how to get that extra $100 so that we could get, you know, a real dinner and not eat top ramen from a gas station styrofoam cup again, like whatever the thing was, right? And so in my career, I found that I always kind of go back to these things. It's community, it's learning, it's finding ways to make things fun and silly. It's the challenge of not quite knowing what I'm doing, and being an entertainer. So all of that has sort of nudged me toward this path with Learn with Jason.
Okay, yeah, I think it's kind of interesting, the amount of people that didn't really realize at the time that maybe MySpace was prepping them for a career in web development. Being able to write your own CSS and HTML and things
You're
like
right. The MySpace to dev pipeline is strong. Like, a lot of folks in my circle, when you ask them what their first thing was, they'll say, I customized my MySpace page.
Yeah. So did you choose 4, 8, or 12 in your top friends?
Ooh, I think we started with 4, and then we kept expanding it because we didn't want to offend the other bands.
Yeah. So I feel like we're instantly dating ourselves right now to the younger viewers of this stream that may not know what MySpace even was. So we should probably step back into
Sure.
the current day.
Yeah.
So you're
I also TikTok.
Yeah. You need your skateboard and the hat so you can do the Steve Buscemi thing.
Hello, fellow kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cool. So, would you describe yourself as a JavaScript developer or TypeScript developer first and foremost, or?
That's a good question. I think I would describe myself as a web developer first and foremost. I have a lot of experience in JavaScript, and I'm getting better at TypeScript. I was resistant to it for a long time, but I've been writing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript since about 2002, 2003, something like that. So for a long time, I've been dealing with this stuff. But for the first part of my career, what I really focused on was the HTML and CSS, like that visual layout and making like semantically beautiful pages. So JavaScript is where I make most of my money because that seems to be what people are willing to pay for. But the HTML and CSS is still kind of where my heart is. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair enough. So one thing that's definitely asking for a friend, not for myself, but for anybody watching that's looking at maybe going down a career path of streaming, even education in general, what kind of tips would you give somebody who's starting out? So obviously you built up this channel from nothing, I assume, up to where you are today.
Just push the button and keep showing up. The hardest part about streaming and content creation in general is that when you first start out, nobody knows that you're there, and so you don't have a big audience. And it can be really disheartening to stream to 0 people or 1 person. But the problem is if you're not consistent, then nobody knows to come back. And if you don't keep showing up, then nobody can be looking forward to you being there. Nobody can, make it part of their morning routine to have their coffee and put your show on in the background as they read their email or whatever it is that people do with live streams. So I think the big point is, consistency beats everything else in content creation. Think about the content creators that are prevalent and that are out there that are doing things, and think about the ones that you just can't stand. Like, you're like, there's no way this person deserves to be where they are. And this could be like authors, TV show hosts, whatever it is, like somebody out there in the public sphere. And you're looking at them going like, I could do better than that. You probably could, but they showed up every day for, 5, 10, 15, 40 years in some cases. And they are there every week. And people will watch a consistent mediocre show over an inconsistent, hard to access great show, because we don't, people just don't have the mental energy to like figure out, is this show for me? Is this something I want to watch? Am I going to make a special event out of this? Like, people love series because series tell you what's coming. You know what to expect. It's got enough predictability that you can just step right into it. And it's like putting on a comfortable pair of shoes. And so that consistency and that continually showing up is such a critical piece to building up a sustainable and widely known show.
Yeah, that sounds fair. Is there one resource that you could recommend, like maybe a book or a website, some colleagues that you've worked with?
I mean, for content creation, or like tools for content creators?
Just for content creation in general, really.
I mean, I think don't overcomplicate it when you first start. Like, you can get like a tool, like we're using StreamYard here. It's great. You can use OBS. That's free. You can stream to Twitch or YouTube. Just pick anything and be consistent about it. And, you don't need a special webcam. You don't need a special microphone. You can use your earbuds. You can use your MacBook Pro cam. Like, this goofy stuff I've done with my lighting and my camera, that's because it's fun for me, not because I needed it to succeed. And so, I would actually, fewer resources, more creating at the beginning. Just turn the webcam on and go.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Cool. And so let's we chatted for what 15 minutes now. So let's start to look at code. So you're here today to talk about how we can best deploy a Neo4j application on Netlify.
Yeah.
So if anybody who's not aware of Netlify, do you want to give us a quick overview of what Netlify is?
Yes. So Netlify is a workflow platform for web devs, and it's basically set up to eliminate as much what I've been calling undifferentiated labor as possible around creating for the web. So boilerplates, the headache of deployment, the getting your domain connected to your CDN, connected to your static files, connected to your serverless functions, all of that kind of stuff. All of that just happens when you use Netlify. So you write some code, you can write some serverless functions, you put them in Git. When you push to your Git repo, Netlify will auto detect that, pick it up, automatically build it, and take it live. It will give you deploy previews, staging environments. It handles your environment variables and edge functions, serverless functions, just about everything that you would need for a modern website. It can do. And that it's really going to be, I don't know. It's something that I joined the company because it was like the tool that I reached for by default for just about everything I've built. And now that I'm no longer at Netlify full time, it's still like it's just what my default is always like. Oh, I need to build a thing. Oh yeah, I'll grab a serverless function for that. Oh, I need to build a thing. I'll throw it on Netlify. Like, it's so much easier than what I was doing before, where you had to build the Node app and I'm writing boilerplate around Express, and then I got to find a place to put the Node app, and then I got to make sure it's live because my code's never perfect. It's got memory leaks. It's going to slowly build up over time and crash. But I don't have to now. I don't have to think about any of that stuff. It just works. So I think maybe that's like the big thing is if you're building for the web, Netlify just works, and that's sort of the magic of it all.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's something that I use personally quite regularly. So we use it for things like all of our documentation, the previews are built on Netlify and put up to a URL that any keen user can probably go and find the repository and the URLs for that. I also use it for schedule functions. It took me ages to set up because I didn't realize you had to click enable twice in order to set it up. But we migrate a lot of our data over from like a Neo4j instance into BigQuery for reporting and things like that. One of the things that really strikes me, and it's probably a compliment for you as the ex-VP of developer experience at Netlify, but the developer experience for me is amazing. Is that just coincidental, or is that something that the company's really worked on?
It's absolutely the focus for Netlify. I think the driving light that I've heard from Matt Billman, from Sarah Drasner when she was my boss before I took over, from Dana Lawson, who's our SVP of engineering. It's always around, are we actually solving a problem? Like, it's not like what's possible, but what's better. Because I think that a lot of tech has been, this is very cool. Like, we're solving a hard technical problem. And then when you go to hand that to developers, you're kind of saying like, well, yeah, you got to do all the research to understand why this is such a cool technical problem to solve. And when people look at Netlify, I think Netlify, like, we have succeeded if you look at it and think that it's boring, because it is not. Like, Netlify has solved so many incredibly technical problems, and you will never hear about them from us, because you shouldn't have to care what the cache invalidation looks like for a global CDN with an edge network layered on top of it, and all of the domain routing and proxying that has to be done to be able to put static assets on in this static asset bucket. And then you've got your serverless functions over on AWS, and then you've got your edge functions over here. All that coordination, you don't have to think about that at all. You never have to think about how we're handling DDoS, or how we're basically always under some kind of like botnet attack because, big companies host on Netlify and people are trying to take them down. All of that stuff is just done. It's happening in the background. You don't ever have to even be aware that it exists. You just happily develop your site and push to Git, and it goes live. And that to me is like such a core focus of the whole team. They're trying to think, what work can we make disappear? Not how can we make ourselves sound smart by showing you this really clever implementation, but how can we make this so that we literally stop talking about this as an industry? Like, it needs to be a solved problem, the way that nobody talks about why letters show up on the screen when I hit my keyboard.
Yeah. Okay. So one of our comments come from Michael Hunger, our faithful leader, who said that Netlify is kind of like the Heroku of modern times.
It is.
I guess they're taking a lot of a lot of business from Heroku recently.
A lot of inspiration from Heroku too.
Oh, okay. So Michael has got a question around so fine grain edge function. So he says, how do you deal with the fine grainness of edge functions for dealing with one function at a time? Do you lose the bigger context, or their reusable parts, synergies, things like that?
So you can have an edge function run on one route or your entire site, and you can include utilities. So if you find yourself building things that need reusability, then you can kind of move the code out of the edge function or the serverless function into utilities and share those between files. I think the thing that I've started to really build my philosophy of this around is that what I'm solving with serverless functions and what I'm solving with edge functions is stuff that wouldn't have fit into the core application anyways, because it's not built for that thing, right? So if I'm building an application and I want to use an edge function to localize, for example, you don't just like go into your Next.js site and say like, okay, give me the localization data. You need a layer for that. Something else has to come in. And if depending on the solution you choose, you might not have any flexibility in how that's actually applied. And so what I like about the mental model of edge functions as being a layer is that this layer of logic is specifically about providing different information based on somebody's preferences, or which user is logged in, or where they are in the world. And that's not really, it's not data, it's not UI, it's something in between. And it's this sort of like customization, personalization, dynamism layer. And so if when I start thinking about it like that, I start kind of breaking my app up into like tiers of responsibility. And yeah, so Michael just said, so edge functions are more utilities than the core functionality of an app. Yes. So and I think there are people who would argue with me on that, but what I have found is that there are frameworks that are edge native. So like Fresh from Dino, or Remix, or a few others have the ability to be fully deployed to edge functions, at which point, yes, it is, the application is running completely in the edge. And that's great. You've now relocated all of your logic up there. But when you're thinking about, say, you're using Astro or you're using Eleventy and you've built an e-commerce site, and like what you're really going for is like minimal JavaScript, and you want this to work on feature phones, and people are going to have JavaScript disabled, but you still want the cart to work and you still want the login to work and all those things. Now edge functions are sort of allowing you to abstract some of that dynamism to a layer that will continue to be performant and functional, even if somebody's on a low-end 3G phone with no JavaScript. That to me is sort of like, you can abstract things to where they're best suited for your application, and kind of work around different restrictions and all that stuff.
Okay, so you mentioned Next, you mentioned Astro there, Eleventy. So say we've got a new user who's looking to build an application today, maybe that connects to Neo4j. They want to deploy it on Netlify. Is there anything that you would recommend? Are there any trends that you're seeing at the moment?
I mean, so Neo4j being a graph database is just, it's great for networked data. Like if you've got sort of unstructured data or things that are more complicated than like my site is a blog, it has posts. I'm thinking about even now as I write out. So I've got Learn with Jason, for example. So Learn with Jason has episodes. Each episode has guests. Guests can have multiple episodes. Each episode is tagged. The tags are tied to multiple episodes. And suddenly I've got this network of data, even though that seems really straightforward, where it's like one thing. And I find myself wanting to pull these views on my site where, oh, well, you've got, you're looking at this episode and I want to show you related episodes based on the tags. So what I really want to do is get like all the episodes that share the same tags and then find the ones with the highest occurrence of like overlapping tags. So this one shares 3 of the same tags. It's probably the most relevant to what you just watched. Whereas this one only shares one of the same tags. Let's put that lower in the list. Doing that with a REST API is super challenging for me, because you're basically building out a bespoke endpoint each time that you want to do something like that. And what I really liked when you were showing me Neo4j last time is that it's because it's a graph, it just kind of already works like that. And so it's sort of, me at the speed of thought saying like, oh, I want to see how this looks. And then, I just click things around on the graph. And so the nice thing about this is that at the end of the day, what I'm getting back, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but what I'm getting back at the end of the day is a JSON blob. So if I'm out here thinking to myself, I would like to build, I have a big bucket of data, like, even with 2-3 facets, it's going to be pretty complex to pull different views. And I want to put that into Neo4j. What I'm excited about is I can use a serverless function or an edge function, depending on what I'm trying to solve, to hit up Neo4j for that particular facet of data that I'm looking for, and get my JSON blob back, and then send it back to my site as if it were a REST API. And that to me is magic. Like that's the piece that gets me so excited about Netlify, is that like, I don't actually have to think about what is the Neo4j adapter for Next.js. I just have to know, can I make a call to Neo4j and get JSON back? Great. I can put that into an API route or a serverless function, depending on the framework that I'm using. And it'll just be available in my app as data that I can then work with.
Okay, so really, as long as it's a JavaScript application of some point, some regard, it can be used to connect to Neo4j and do what you need to do.
To be completely honest, it doesn't even have to be JavaScript. Like one of the ways that I've used it is I use serverless functions to stand up REST endpoints, so that any app, like you could pull it into PHP or Rust or Go or whatever you're using, Ruby, because it's, at the end of the day, you're hitting like /API/ my thing, and it's going to bring you back JSON. And so what happens under the hood is all JavaScript. That's all a serverless function that's running JavaScript. But any application can now consume that thing, and I'm hosting it on Netlify, so it doesn't cost me anything. And I can, if I know that the URLs are unique, I can also cache. Like I can use what's called a builder function to cache those responses, so that I'm not hammering the Neo4j database. And it lets you control your rate limits. It lets you really do a lot. And I don't have to. Now I'm not like trying to self-host anything. I'm not trying to build my own caching layers. I'm just using the built-in features of Netlify that come on the free tier so that I can provide an API either to my JavaScript sites that I want to build with, or externally if I want other people to be able to access that data and like build apps with, like, for example, I have a Learn with JSON API in hopes that people can use it for learning or for demos or whatever they want.
Okay, cool. So let's jump in. Let's write some code. I'll drive. You
Sure.
You can be the backseat driver, and you can tell me what to put in. So I'll just share my screen here. So I've got your website up here at the moment. You mentioned your episodes you've got with tags and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got episodes back to 2018. So I'm guessing maybe a couple of hundred there.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be the best way to import this data into Neo4j?
Let's see. So I actually have a new API endpoint that I'm working on. It'll give you the full list. So let me double check here that this is working. It's LWJ API. Yeah. So LWJ-API .netlify
Yeah.
.app.
Yep.
/API/episodes. So this is a full dump of every episode, and it is it's a little simplified. Like, it doesn't have the like the transcript and stuff like that because it's still a work in progress. So if we want to get the tags and stuff, we can go to learnwithjson.dev/API/episodes, and that'll limit to the most recent 50, I think.
Okay. So we have tags in.
Did the tags get brought in this one? I don't think I included them yet.
No, not in this one, no. So sorry, /API/episodes.
So yeah, just go to learn. So just replace the LWJ API.netlify.app. Just do LWJ.dev.
Okay, great.
Dev with no.netlify.app.
Oh, sorry. We'll get there. Here we go. Cool. Right. So tags.
All right. So that one will have. It's not all of them have been tagged, but yeah, the episode tags there is what we're looking for.
Yep. Okay, got you. Okay. Cool. Perfect. So kind of graphy stuff that we can kind of see in here is that we've got an episode which would be a node in its own right, which has a title, has a slug, dates, repos, demo links there. We could extract out the links there to find which episodes have the same sort of links, or maybe even just like the same general websites that are being shared there. We've got the episode tags there, which will go. We can connect to other people, and also to guests as well. Cool. So we have this. So we'll be importing this using Cypher. We'll build some sort of JavaScript app using the JavaScript driver. What sort of methods in Netlify should we be using to import this data in?
So if you want to set up a new, so with Cypher needs to run in a node environment. Is that right?
Yeah.
So we can just set it up as a serverless function. That's probably the quickest path here. So if you want to get into your terminal or VS Code, whatever you want to do there.
Yeah, so I'm in. Let's just create a fresh project there. So npm init.
Great. Cool. Do you have the Netlify CLI?
I do. Yep.
Okay, excellent.
So
the first thing that we can do here is if you just want to like open this up, there's a I think there's a CLI command that will generate this for you, but it's so fast to do that let's just make it anyway. So let's open this up in VS Code or Vim or whatever you use.
Okay.
All right. So let's create a new folder called Netlify. And then inside that, make another one called functions.
Okay. So one thing I learned is you can type Netlify/functions and it creates the whole path, which is quite cool.
It's really clever about that. And then in that functions folder, let's create one called, we will call this import.ts.
Import.ts, yeah.
Okay. And then in your terminal, let's import or npm install at Netlify /functions.
Yeah.
And this is actually it's optional for what we're going to do right now, but the benefit of this is it gives us type hints. So let's start out by importing the type. So import type, and inside some curly boys, let's do handler, capital H, from Netlify functions.
Yep.
And then we're going to export a const called handler, and that's going to have a type of handler. And that will be an async fat arrow function. Okay, so just to prove out that it's working, let's return an object and give it a status code with a capital C of 200 as an integer, and then a body of okay or hello or whatever as a string. All right, so save that.
Yeah.
And then run Netlify dev. And so what's happening is Netlify here has detected that you have a Netlify functions folder. So if you go up to your URL there and do /.netlify/functions/import, we get the output of our function. So we are now building, this is a running serverless function. And what we can do now is anything that you would do in Node. So at this point, I'll hand it back to you to import Cypher and do the import itself. But you can just do that right above line 4.
Okay, cool. So for that, I need the Neo4j driver. And just before the we started, I've created this Neo4j Aura instance. So for anybody who isn't aware of this, Neo4j Aura is the Neo4j's online self-hosted, online cloud platform. Everything gets hosted for you. You can create one database completely free of charge with 250,000. 200,000 nodes, 400,000 relationships, completely free in perpetuity. So I thoroughly recommend anybody that needs to, or even just wants to play around with Neo4j, heads over to Aura. You can play around for free. So I'll set this one up here. I want to import Neo4j from Neo4j driver. And so if I'm creating a driver that's going to connect to Neo4j, so obviously this is a serverless function. So should this be inside the handler or outside of the handler?
So it depends on if you expect it to get a lot of use. Like it's probably not a bad idea to put it outside, because that way, if the machine is still warm, it doesn't get double instantiated. But you know, if it's like an import, for example, it's going to run once a day. There's not really a difference.
Okay, cool. And so I'm hard coding the values into here at the moment. But is there a way that I can use the Netlify CLI to define some environment variables?
Yes. So, I mean, maybe the first thing that we can do here is you would initialize a new site on Netlify. So in your command line, you can do NTL init. NTL is just a shortcut for Netlify, sorry. And so this is going to let you create a new site. Looks like you need to deploy it to, this will work. This is fine.
Yep.
It needs to be like hyphenated. Okay, so you've got a site there. So now if you want to do NTL env :set, and then you can put whatever environment variable you want there. So if you wanted it to be your Neo4j URL, and then you just drop that right in there. Okay, and then you can swap out on line 5 to process.env.neo4j URI.
Yeah.
Okay, and then stop and restart your server in that first terminal there. And you'll see the environment variable gets pulled down. You'll have to scroll back up to look at it. So right there, you can see the injected site settings and var Neo4j Uri.
Yeah, got you. Okay. Cool. So we'll do that again.
Yep. For any other values you need, if you need to pull that off screen to get your username and password out of there.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to shut this instance down once I've finished. So.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't mind if people see this password.
I remember early in my streaming days, I would do that, and the chat was so fast that they would start sabotaging my database live. They'd just start putting in things like "use better security."
Yeah, it's definitely a problem between chair and keyboard. It's not a security issue.
You can use a .env file. There's an env import of .env that'll grab all that. Let's see. Ezekiel says, "Is there a way to dispose driver on Netlify?" It's like on Lambda. It actually is Lambda. Like Netlify serverless functions run on Lambda under the hood.
Okay. Cool. That for now. So we have our driver. So we need to take the this API URL now.
Mm-hmm.
Which wasn't. Is that one?
That's the one.
Yep. Okay. Cool. All right. Cool. So for options for fetch, should we be using Node fetch? Is there built-in fetch?
What version of Node are you using?
Good question. I think 16.
Okay, so if you're using 16, then you'll need Node fetch. Node 18 has the ability to use built-in Node fetch. But we would need to set one more environment variable if you wanted to do that.
Okay.
You've already got it.
So I would just use that. Yeah, you have dependency for now. Cool. So what we want to do is, should we call this? Where is it? Await fetch. URIs there. And then, so JSON would be await
res.json, yeah.
Res.json, perfect. Cool. So if I return that now as JSON, is that going to work, or do I need to?
You want to JSON stringify that.
Stringify.
And now, if you head back over, there you go.
All right. Cool, brilliant. So we've got our instance, the driver. We've got some data there. So what I want to do is I want to open a session. Driver.session.
Then there's a question from Ezekiel that I think is for you, which is how does Neo4j handle connection pooling?
So all the connection pooling is handled inside the driver itself. So you get a number of a number of connections opened when you instantiate the driver. Those are closed when you close the driver, and then the session is kind of like a client-side abstraction that borrows those connections. So like one session isn't necessarily one connection to Netlify. So you have multiple TCP connections, which the query is sent over and the results are pulled back. So you don't necessarily need to handle that yourself.
Great.
So inside the session, we want to execute a write transaction. Inside there, we have a So this takes a function. So the function is passed a transaction object in which you can call tx.run. And then here we have the cipher, and then we can pass through our parameters as well. So I can say, for example, just to quickly create the episode nodes, I can just call merge to find or create that node. So a node with a label of episode, alias of E. There's a unique identifier as the slug. Is that right, or would it be the
it would
ID?
Be slug.current would be your unique identifier.
Okay, cool. Oh, so first thing we need to, because this is an array.
Yes.
We want to unwind JSON as, let's call it row.
So that's the syntactic equivalent of a loop.
Yeah. So you're turning an array of things into one line per execution.
Got it.
It's row.slug.current, and then we can set E plus equals. So this is my lazy syntax that I use for basically mass assignment. But we can, so instead of saying like E dot something equals row dot something, I can say E append these properties to it. So from this row,
nice.
I can just say like dot A dot B. So you can take the title, the description, and the date. Let's say title dot description, and then so the date, we probably want to turn that into a date time property type.
Probably,
so you can say row dot date. Cool. And then, so what I want to do here is, instead of returning the JSON, I can say nodes created, and I can take the result from the summary. I can take the counters, updates, nodes created.
And that should be, assuming all goes well, 50. 48.
Ooh, so close.
My pagination is, this is why I'm working on a new API.
Cool. So if I now go into this database, let's grab that. Password. And so in the, once this loads in the Explore tab, I should be able to, let's say, type episode. And those are our episodes there. So there's a hairball of values there. Nothing too interesting. But when we start to add the things, the actual connected data, then that'll start to look more interesting. So if we take a look at the that URL again. So what do you think would be most interesting to import in the tags, do you think?
I think tags will probably give us the most relevant, and then guess we might get a couple like 2 episode links in there.
Okay, cool. So I will. So because these the episode tags is an array, I need to unwind that again. So unwind row dot episode tags as tag. Let's merge t tag. And then there was a slug on there, wasn't there? So that's tag dot slug dot current. Set t dot label. Tag dot label. So if I run that again, whoa, oops, sorry. Oh, no. Cool. So 46 again. So I'm assuming that's a good thing. Let's take a look back in our workspace. Expand this one. Oh, nothing to expand. Let's double check that what's happening here.
Episode tags gets unwound. We've got the slug current. We've got the label. But yeah, not all of them are tagged, so it might be that some of them are null. But that one, that Supabase one should be tagged, I thought.
It's created 0, so that's.
If you look for just, it doesn't create like tag nodes when you do it that way.
So it should. I need to. Episode has tag. Oops. We generate this perspective. Let's go back to good old-fashioned debugging.
And so when we're creating the tag there, let me just, if you go back to your, is it Cypher is the name of the query language? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So
yeah,
in this Cypher
the
query, we are, so 27, we unwind the JSON data as a row. We then merge that. We create E as an episode type. So we're labeling it episode. And then we set the slug. Okay. And then we set on E all of the values that we want to keep: title, description, date. And then with our episode and with the raw row data, we unwind again the episode tags, which you're forcing to an array. Do we need that, or was that the merge thing that was causing problems?
That was just a test. So yeah, we shouldn't need that. If you try and unwind a null, it will give you null.
Got it. And then we merge again. We create T labeled tag, and we identify it with the slug of the current tag slug, and then set a label on it. And then we're merging into E that it has the tag of T. Am I correct in my
so that's merging the relationship between the E node and the T node.
Right. Okay, got it.
So what I can do is say e.tags is
Michael is also suggesting to do a match P, return P, to see if we can get anything back.
All right, so let's try that one again. So that should now also have a property on there for tags. There we go, got some in there now.
Oh, the browser just hadn't caught up. Is what Michael's saying.
We need your help, Michael. Okay. All right, cool. So if I just delete this perspective and then start again. So a perspective is a way to kind of view the data, so a way to customize how you view the data. So you can generate a perspective that looks a lot better. Right, so episode. So let's find all episodes where they have a tag with the name of, slug React. Let's see if this works. Okay, cool. So we've got this one. So we have all this React tag here. So we've got optimizing React app performance, how to add component test to web apps, build a live voting app, build and deploy. Cool. So if we load that out, we should see a lot more. Into view. And cool. So here's kind of our hairball of episodes and tags.
And so each of the purple ones is a tag.
Yep, correct. Yeah.
Very cool.
Cool. Okay. Brilliant. So if we're looking to build more functions out to add functionality to the website, are we just building out more functions, more of these?
Yeah. So like a good example here, one that we could build out really quickly that would have been difficult with my current setup is I want to get, let's say, a list of every episode tagged with a slug. So we want to have kind of a we want to pass in a value and get that. So the first thing that we can do is create a new function. And let's call this like load episodes by tag or by tag or however you want to. .ts. Okay. Yeah. And then the same general setup. So you can actually copy paste the top of your function there if you want. And we can. So let's run a query here that will get like basically run that like episode has tag React, and let's get that returning, and then we'll make it dynamic.
Okay, so we're going to execute a read rather than a write. See episode where the slug property is equal to the slug that we'll pass.
And for now, just hard code it, yeah. Or let's make it one that definitely exists. So React.
Oh, for the tag, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
T tag. E, and then we'll return E. So all of the properties on that node, and then we can say for the tags, episode has tag to 80, another tag, 80, everything from there. Cool. And then for the body, what we want to do there is process those results. So result.records.map, and you can say row.get E. So we'll give that an alias there.
Great. Okay, so if we go and hit this in the browser here, so just replace import.
Okay, cool.
Look at it go.
Excellent. So let's learn TRPC with the tags React, software architecture, Let's learn intro sessions and TypeScript.
Okay. So you see this? There's a little UTF Unicode thing. Let's fix that real quick. So go into your into line 29. Add a new line with the property headers, and in curly braces put content type.
Like that?
Yep. And then we're gonna do application/JSON semicolon. And oh no, it's charset UTF-8? Crap. I just had this on my brain, and now
is that right?
I think so. Give that a shot, and if it doesn't work, I'll look it up.
We're definitely doing this on the fly here, Jason.
It is. Perfect. Okay. So that is that's a little gotcha that if you've never seen that before, would drive you up a wall, right? But it's actually nice and straightforward to solve. You just got to know where to look, right? Okay, so now we've got episodes coming back loaded by tag. And so the next thing that I want to do is I want to send in a query. So let's do it with a query param, because that'll probably be easier. So in the argument to our fat arrow function on line 13, where the first argument is going to be the event.
Okay.
And so what we can get on, right there is we can get, let's do a const params equals event dot, and if you type query, it should autocomplete for you. Yeah. And let's just console log that and take a look at what comes up. And if you add like, let's go to our function and do a query string of tag equals React. Okay, and then head back to our, and you see there it's actually already parsed out for us.
Yep, nice.
So we can destructure params to just get tag. Okay, cool. So now we can feed that tag in place of React. And how does this handle failure? Like if we pass in undefined or something like that, do we need a default?
We could do so if by default you send a null in or undefined in Neo4j, the JavaScript driver will convert that undefined to null, and then it will search for any tag where the slug is null. So basically just fail and return 0 rows.
Cool. Then that's fine, because otherwise we can write a quick check if we need to return a failure if there's a problem. But this should work. So let's give it a shot and switch it out for let's see what was one of the other ones. Let's check another tag and hit it. So
Neo4j, is that in there? Nope.
That wasn't within the last 48, I don't think. So let's do serverless. Is it serverless or serverless S functions? Yeah, there we go.
Perfect.
And so now we're doing a query by serverless. So this is where I think this gets so exciting, is that, very, very quickly we're able to put together these different views of things. And like, I would use this in my application to make recommendations. I'd probably actually, here's a question. If we've got time for it, can we make a Cypher query that says like, find the episodes that have the most tags in common?
Yeah, sure. So now we're coming on to Michael's request of a now for a recommendation query. So
yes. Michael, can you set default headers globally? Yes, you can. There's an underscore headers file that you can put in your public folder. And you can also set it in your netlify.toml as a headers config. It's in the docs. If you search for Netlify set headers, it'll come up.
Okay, so what I'm going to search for now is find me the current episode, which we're not going to need a value for, episode where the slug is the slug parameter we pass through, has tag T, and then follow that relationship type out to other. Should we call that E? Then I don't have to change anything. Cool. So I can say that with that episode in general.
Okay, so walk me through what's happening on line 21 here, because I feel like this is very visual, and so I'm kind of intuiting what this means, but maybe let me repeat it back. So what you're saying here is you're saying on line 21, match the episode with the slug that's going to be passed in, so the current episode, and then you're looking along the relationships of has tag to a tag, and then on the other side of it, you're looking for other episodes that have the same tag relationship.
Yeah, correct. So a has tag relationship to that same T node.
Right.
So what I could do is I could say like, T tag, but because we know that the relationship on the end of this has tag relationship is always going to be the node on the end of the relationship is always going to be a tag, so we don't need to do that check.
Right. Gotcha.
But yeah, so from the episode that we're interested in, or that we have at the moment, go through any has tag relationship from that node to a node which we give an alias of T. Then we follow the other has tag relationships to another node which we give an alias of E. And again, that's always going to be it could be an episode, or I don't know. Say you branch out into books. We could say that this is an episode, or we could say we could filter on a book. But yeah, so because at the moment, because of the data model that we have, we know that's just an event. That's an episode. That's all we need to.
Got it.
That's all we need to do.
And it looks like Michael's got a shortcut for us here of how to get everything back.
No, but so Michael, I'm one step ahead of you there. So we've got so here what we're saying is from that E node, give me all of the properties plus the tags that node has, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that collect statement to say collect T and say in common. So these are the tags that it has in general, and these are the tags that we have in common. And then I can say return, let's say.
Do we need to order it or anything?
I'm getting there, Jason. Come on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So let's take everything from the episode, everything that's
plus in common.
Yeah, and then we can order it by.
I got it.
Desk limit 5. Actually, it may be. So I think I've written a bad query here. It's not going to make any difference for our for our use case. But what you want to do is you want to do the aggregations before you access the properties. So really, what you want to do is say with E, collect T as in common, and then order that by the size of the in common collection. Descending limit 5, and then we can just return what is in common. So yeah, actually, you're completely right on that one. Cool. So that looks okay. Michael, you got any comments? Cool. And then we're using the slug there. So that's currently telling me that it's giving me a TypeScript error there to say that the slug doesn't exist there. So is there like a generic we can pass through to the handler or anything like that?
I mean, since it's a query string parameter, not really. So I would probably just like cast it as any. Like it, we could, like, if it was an official, we would want to go and solve that, but it's fine.
Yeah, so I guess we can do. Fine. Okay.
Just don't tell anybody who is very passionate about TypeScript that we did that, and everything is going to be just fine.
Yeah. Absolutely cool. So let's take so chat up Slack. and then we will, do I call that recommend?
Oh,
That's bad. That's my bad cipher. Here we go. Cool. So the one with the most in common. Also, I've got n in common n dot slug. So what I was doing there is I was returning the whole node rather than just the
I gotcha.
The relationship there. So that gives me the identity, which I don't think we mentioned on when I was on your show, Jason. But there's a discrepancy between Neo4j integers and JavaScript integers. So Neo4j integers are 64-bit, and JavaScript are only 32. So what the driver will do is it will take any integer and then convert it into or that's stored in the database, convert it into a Neo4j int type, which you need to call to number on or to string to convert that in. So that's what that bit is there. It's the same thing for a date. So in Neo4j, like a date is a collection of the different values: the year, month, day, hour, minute, second, nanoseconds, and then the offset. So those are all integers. So you can call to string on the date, or you can convert it in the cipher. So what I can just do actually is just say that the date is toString e.date, and then that'll overwrite what was assigned above.
Great.
Cool. So that just
that's great.
String. Cool.
Okay.
So one tag in common there.
Okay, and then do we have? So let's try React. That one's probably more likely to have overlap. Or
so this is the
shout out Slack. Let's try. Let's see, which one has a lot of tag overlap here? We've got.
So that one's got 2. And this one looks pretty.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get one of. Right, so we'll say, what is edge computing?
That one seems safe. Let's try that.
Cool, so that's got edge functions in common. And the 2 tags there are performance and edge functions. Okay, so they've all got 1 there at the moment, but I assume this is all down to just the small data set that we've imported in.
Yeah. Well, try that one, the dynamic links and social bios, because the serverless and edge, that should overlap with more than one thing. But anyways, this is it's very cool that this is working this quickly, because this would have taken me a long time to build.
Cool. Yeah, so it's still, the in common is still.
Yeah, it's probably an issue of not having as much data, but that's all right. So we could, if we wanted to, we can do pages of imports and add more data. But I think I've already kept you over time, so.
Yeah, I think that's that should be enough. So one of the things that I use are schedule functions, which is I guess a Netlify Labs feature at the moment. So I don't know if that's something you want to talk about, or something else. Like, are there any types of functions that differ from this, or?
Yeah, so there are a few things that we can do here. The first one would be we can do scheduled functions. So if we want to run the importer, if we wanted to run that, say, every day or 2 or every week, something like that, then what we can do is we can get the schedule helper function out of Netlify functions, and then we can pass in a cron job, or there's some shorthand like @hourly, and what that'll let us do is tell Netlify, so in this case, every hour run this function. And so in the case of an importer, for me, I would maybe do it daily because I have 2 episodes a week. Or, you can even tell it to like, I want this to run on like Wednesdays and Fridays because I stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or however you want to do it. So then we can also, if we wanted to, like if I was going to open this API up for other people to hit, and I don't want to, does Neo4j have request limits? Like, is that part of the free tier, is the number of requests?
No, well, not as I'm aware of. I think it's just as much as you can throw
It's
at
just
it,
the nodes and relationships.
memory, really. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So if that's the case, then what we're looking at is like in other APIs and databases and service platforms that I've seen, they've got like number of requests that you can use on their free tier. And so we have this concept of builder functions. And so what builder functions will do, they're called on-demand builders, and they will allow you to import just this little helper called builder. Where is it? It's in a different spot because it's why they don't know why this isn't where it should be in the docs. Let me see. It's builder, on-demand builders. They are in configuring builds. That makes sense. So you get this builder helper, the same as the schedule helper. But what you can do is wrap your handler in that builder, and it will cache the output at the edge as long as the request, so the get string matches. So this is super helpful if you're doing something like passing in, like in our case, we would probably write up a redirect so that would be, /API/episode/recommendations. And the episode would be a slug. Right. So we could do something like that where you would be passing in a unique string to get a unique set of related data. And if we wrap that in a builder, then the first time we're going to hit the database, assemble the data, and return the JSON. But the second time we'll actually just cache that JSON on the Netlify CDN edge so that you don't have to run that serverless function more than once. You can set a TTL on it as well if you want that to invalidate after a certain amount of time. So you can set it in seconds. So, in my case, I would probably not set it. I would just refresh the cache whenever the site builds, which is the default. But if you had something like a database that was refreshing and you didn't necessarily need to rebuild your whole site to get that new data, then you can set it, every hour, every minute if you want. I mean, however often you want, and it'll allow you to do all that. The only other thing that you could potentially do is if you were going to batch a big job, like if you were going to pull all of the data out of your database and you were going to say generate some episode graphics or batch email a bunch of things or whatever, something that's going to take a while to complete. We've also got this idea of background functions. And what background functions will let you do is you can basically start a job and immediately respond that the function has succeeded. And then it will continue to execute for as long as it needs to. I think the cap on it is 10 or 20 minutes. It's a while. Like it can run for a while. And that's done by just appending -background to any function name. This one is on a paid plan. Just as a heads up, it's if you need that, you'll need to get a pro plan. But yeah, lots of really powerful stuff that you can do in here. If you're having trouble thinking of a use case for it, it's probably because you haven't hit a use case for it yet. But yeah, definitely something to keep in mind for as you start building out more and more things. Those scheduled functions especially are just such a killer tool to have in your pocket, because being able to run a job daily or weekly is I can't tell you how many of those things I have running that just keep my life in order. Like reminding me to do stuff, cleaning up my website, sending me emails with like what happened over here, just little, all sorts of stuff that you can set up very, very quickly with a Netlify function to just, be your own little virtual assistant.
Awesome, yeah. So one of the things that struck me when I was using the schedule functions is that it's really hard just to set up a cron job. Like it's so difficult to do these routine tasks, or even just have an endpoint, like you say, that you can just hit every now and then to send a set of emails or something. But like it was so refreshing to have the option to do this in Netlify.
I was surprised because you hear about cron jobs all the time. And when I first went to set up a cron job, I was kind of taken aback by how challenging it was for me to do because I'm a front end dev. Like I've spent my whole life working on web dev. And then I went to go set up a cron job, and suddenly I'm like editing system files in Vim, and I was like, oh, I'm going to break something, right? And like I figured it out. Like we can all figure this stuff out. You know, the instructions out there are really good, but being able to just use JavaScript and say, perform this functionality at this interval, to me, just makes it that much easier and more accessible for us as web devs to go out and build this, what I would consider to be pretty advanced functionality. Like what we're doing, what we did in this show, and what we're talking about when you start talking about cron jobs and scheduled functions, builder functions, all that stuff is you're starting to reach pretty decently far back into the stack, but you're still using your web dev skills, right? You're still writing JavaScript, and you're not starting to like really crawl into system internals. And I think, again, that's that whole goal of Netlify, is to make work disappear. Like I shouldn't ever need to know what the cron tab is in my computer. I just know I want this function to run every 4 hours.
Yep, makes sense. Cool. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Jason. Really appreciate it. For our viewers, where can they find more about you? How can they follow on with your work?
Yeah, I am on Twitter and Mastodon as J Lengstorf. You can find all of my things. Actually, the easiest place to go is jason.af/links. That has all of the things. And this is also an application of Edge functions here, because if you'll see the stats under each of those links, those are actually loaded in at the edge so that they're always up to date. And so this is where to go to find me. I'm on all those places, and I'd love to talk to more folks.
Perfect. Cool. Well, thanks a lot for your time today, Jason. If anyone has got any questions, feel free to ping me. I'm Adam Cowley on Twitter, adam@neo4j.com. Shout out for Graph Academy. If anyone's interested in learning Neo4j fundamentals all the way through to app development, advanced Cypher, head over to graphacademy.neo4j.com. Otherwise, we'll see you next week for the next stream.
All right. Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, take care.